Good morning, everyone.
Oh, wait, you can't. Wait. Go ahead, keep talking. Welcome them for talking. There you go.
Here we are. Hope everybody's doing good.
Y'all, excuse me, I hadn't finished my coffee yet.
Emma's making her coffee, and
Tell them what this is. Good
yeah, this
morning.
is our coffee chat, a live coffee chat. So today
And when did we start this? Who are you? I'm Timmy Bradshaw. Amber's getting coffee. You don't think that. Not everybody joins us.
yeah. So if you're joining us for the first time, I'm Tim, and my wife Amber. She's making her coffee, and we are two of the five that moved from the city to the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, and we have coffee chat and talk about our lives and get some input from people and just chit chat. So
So here we are. Y'all
here
get my coffee.
here we are.
I gotta have it just right, y'all. Good morning. How are you? Well, we already got everybody up bright and bushy tail this morning. It's dark here, y'all. We're in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, and we've got rainstorm moving in, and there's not a stitch of light outside. It's actually raining. I don't know if is it gonna snow? Why are
It's
you crooked?
foggy, rainy. It's a little chilly.
And forgive me, I'm all still poofing. My whole face is swollen. Well, my whole body's swollen actually. Um, but I've had allergic reaction since Thanksgiving and I can't seem to shake it yet. So I'm working on it, but it's a process. So anyhow, this morning, there we go. I think that's it. There we go. We talked last week about how we were going to discuss our forest fires and everything, and then I forgot about it, and we ended up talking about something else last week. Sometimes we plan these things, sometimes we don't. And you're just remembering, oh, we were going to talk about the fires,
Yeah.
right? We haven't had our coffee yet this morning. Y'all, Saturdays is our only day to kind of sleep in. And even though I've been up a while, going down rabbit holes, my brain isn't in coffee mode yet. So give me a second. Good morning. How are y'all? Who's here? I can see that y'all are here. Um, but anyhow, we've been doing this series, for lack of a better word, called Prepping for Peace. And there's a lot that goes with that. But you know how most preppers do the whole fear porn, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So that's why you have to prep for doomsday. And we've been putting a spin on that. Is Puddin outside or did she come back in?
She never went outside.
Oh, um, good morning. How are y'all? Thorn Greet's here. Mallory, good morning. Hi from LA. Wonderful. Nice to have y'all. Um, so we've been doing this kind of series, for lack of a better word, I'm going to keep saying that, is for prepping for peace, not for panic, not for fear, just to be prepared. We throw our faith into it and what the Bible says about prepping and what the Bible says about fear and how we feel about it. And this topic today, it was close to our hearts a couple of weeks ago. Matter of fact, if you saw the picture that I shared with the clip that we were going live today, that is a picture from just a couple of weeks ago event that we had a forest fire at the mountain range right behind our house and or behind our road, I should say, called Shell Mountain. And that's part of the preparation that we wanted to discuss today, whether we're mentally ready to talk about it or not. Because there's so much going on in the world that's like, oh my gosh, are we going to get invaded? Or oh my gosh, is the grid going to go down? Or oh my goodness, is it going to be another pandemic or plandemic? Oh my gosh, 2024 is going to be horrible. How do we prep for it? And that's kind of what we'll be discussing on and off throughout the year. Z-
She said invaded.
What was it? What do you call it?
Invaded.
What is it called?
We're gonna get invaded.
Well, what else would it be called?
Oh, I don't know.
Why are you talking aliens, Joker?
Well, that's
Oh my
what you
goodness.
think when you hear invaded.
I mean, well, I guess you could call them aliens, illegal aliens, foreign invaders, other countries coming to take us over. They're already here. Might as well. Welcome.
They're just waiting on the signal.
We won't go down that rabbit hole.
No, no.
I've said that twice this morning.
We've discussed it a little bit between us, and it's
Especially if you, yeah.
it's a little disturbing.
We'll talk about something else. We'll talk about that some other day.
Yeah.
That said, is we have had the fortune to find this amazing little prepper group that we've been invited to. They found us, I should say. We were doing a demo at a fall festival about how to wash your clothes off grid. And we had a little expo there, and we had a wringer and a washer, and I had laundry detergent out there that kids could make or adults could make, and they learned how to wash clothes the old-fashioned way, and it was a lot of fun. Well, this man came up to us, introduced himself. He was in military gear, and he invited us to. He was retired military, but he still dresses in the, I don't even know what you call it, army issue, and amazing people. So he invited me to be, or us to be speakers at one of their meetings, and we fell in love, and we've been going on and off ever since. And this coming meeting is going to be about bugging in.
Which means
I think that's the topic. As soon as I said that, I couldn't remember. If you're not familiar with the topic, bugging in means if something happens, whether it's a natural disaster or one of the things that I mentioned, an EMP, CME, you create it or you look into it, and it doesn't matter. It means staying in place where you're at and living off what you have. And so I want to talk about the opposite of that to an extent because of the recent fires that we had. And now, mind you, in our area, we live next to the Smoky Mountain National Forest in the Appalachian Mountains in East Tennessee. And in 2016, they had all of those fires that wiped out most of Gatlinburg, some of Pigeon Forge and the surrounding areas. It killed a lot of people.
Devastating.
And it devastated the area. It was right after the election. And they said 2 kids set wildfires, and that's how it started. So they say. And the area is still recovering. We moved here 5 years ago. So 2018, we moved here 2 years after it had taken place. And a lot of the area was still scorched. It had not rebuilt yet. And it's a stark reminder of what could happen. Now, where we live, we know for a fact it takes a very long time for the fire department to get here because we called the fire department when Timmy I couldn't wake him up. He had passed out and he was on the floor. And they needed 4-wheel drive. Some of them couldn't get here. Some of them could. They're used to these mountains. So it takes a long time for them to get here, meaning that it told us we're on our own for a good bit before emergency vehicle can find us. And which is concerning, when you're not prepared. So we were thinking the fires too. We don't have water up here, y'all, regardless of what you might think that you know about our home from seeing it on TV. We still don't have running water up here. We collect our water. We do have a well on property that's a half mile down our mountain. We have our saltwater pool that has 5,000 gallons.
Just under 5,000.
About 5,000 gallons. We have water cisterns where we collect rainwater, but we've been in a drought and during these fires. Now it's raining right now, and praise God for that. But we had a severe drought recently this fall, and that's why it's been so. We've been on a no burn issue, and there was little fires popping up all over the place. I mean, it was these poor volunteer firefighters have been busy like crazy. And it got really close and they were evacuating some of the homes just 2 streets over from us. And so that was really concerning. And the picture that I showed was 2 streets over from us. And they had said a small fire, what they call a small fire, 3,000 acres.
Yeah.
It's kind of big. And it wasn't a ground fire, brush fire, it was jumping trees. And so that's very concerning as well because we can be prepped to like bug at home, bug in. This is what they call bug in. We can be prepped for that. But if you have to, you got like just a short period of time to get the stuff in your house and get out, or it can mean your life. That's a whole nother topic. It's like, how do you pack all that canned food? How do you pack all that stuff that you've been saving and prepping all this time for to stay at home, to bug in at home and leave? Now you have your bug out bags,
Yeah, not to mention your
your
animals, your
livestock.
livestock. It's
Good morning, even though it's raining cats and dogs. It's not quite cats and dogs raining yet here. It's more like
it,
it's raining mice right now.
it's been consistent though.
Yes.
The rain,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been.
So we want to talk to y'all, for instance. I mean, this isn't one of, hey, we got this plethora of knowledge we're going to share with you this morning. This is a group effort. So we're expecting y'all to give us feedback and what you would do and what you would pack to your bug out bags, what you would take with you. Like, let's discuss. You are getting ready to be evacuated for forest fires. You can, if you prepped ahead of time. Our friend Shane out in Idaho, they lost his family of 15. He was a single dad with 15 children. The wife left, and they lost shortly after that. It's like their wife left. One of their his sons died, and they lost their home in a forest fire all in the same couple of years.
Yeah.
It was a horrible time for his family. And after that, they made it like their own makeshift fire truck. And of course, it only had so much water on it. But how you would do that differently, how you would do your home differently. And he said the very first thing is you cut 100 mile, 100 foot clear 100-foot radius around your home of any trees. That helps reduce the fire skipping from tree to tree. If you have that kind of time, if you have that future planning, in an emergency case, that's not realistic. You need to get your family out of there. You're not going to sit out there with a chainsaw and cut a bunch of trees. Or maybe, I don't know. You have to make sure, I would saturate if you have the ability to saturate your ground and house. But you also have to have a plan in place for leaving. They're telling you to leave. I don't
Well,
think they can force you, but it'd be
well,
stupid to stay.
yeah. In a situation like that, and being able to prepare your mind to is possibly not ever
Not come back to the home you're
not
used to.
yeah.
How long that you're going to be gone?
Where
You
are you going
definitely
to
have
go?
to have cash. What are you going to do with your livestock? Are you going to let them out so they can fend for themselves,
Yeah.
or are you going to keep them cooped up and possibly be trapped by a fire? Um, those are real situations. And what would you take with you? Do you have your bug out bag? Would you include in your bug out bag? You've got paper maps. You've got your folder with all of your deed, your insurance, your copy of your driver's license, your birth certificate, your social security card. It's a lot to go over, and it can be overwhelming in an emergency situation. If you plan your bug out bag or your emergency box or whatever you want to call it during the emergency, you're going to muck up. You're going to forget your stuff. There's something you're going to leave behind that you shouldn't have, because your brain can't work that way in an emergency.
Yeah.
Your fight or flight mode.
Yeah, we don't work good in panic mode and trying to
I gotta get more coffee.
think and get things together that we think we need. And so, now is the time to
Prep for peace.
to go through and think about it, and usually the things that you think you don't need are the ones that you end up needing, when you're away. And
I didn't write a list, but we should have a list going that we can share with everybody. Sherry, y'all, everybody who's here, start commenting what you would plan in or what you have planned in your bug out bag and or in your vehicle. So that's one thing that we talked about at one of our meetings that Kat was saying that he has in his vehicle at all times, bottled water, um, protection, you know, food. And then, your paper map, obviously, you can't always rely on a digital sense to get you to where you need to go if you don't know the area. Cash. Did I say protection? I'm going to say that again. Protection. Because in a grander case scenario where it's more of I shouldn't say global, but if it's more of a area disaster that affects everybody in that area, there might be some nefarious activity or people that you run across that are going to be in that emergency panic mode. And would it be the most pleasant to run across? Like you're not going to stop them and ask for directions, and you're not going to give them a ride. So you need protection. Did I say that politically correctly?
well,
There's going to be, it's for instance, if we had to evacuate, it would have been very locally for that fire because they were just evacuating the road 2 roads down from us. And then when they go to do ours. So the people in panic would have been just the people on our road, not the whole city. Get it? See where I'm going with that? If there's a type of a disaster that's coming for all of Cosby or all of Cobb County or all, then everybody in that city, in that county or whatever is going to be like, they're going to be in mob mode. And that presents a whole different case scenario than what we were faced with just a couple weeks ago.
yeah, because you don't know who's out there.
Right.
You don't know what their intentions are.
Our main thing that we haven't even discussed is what would we do with our livestock. And we should have discussed it ahead of time. And that is every time we go through something like this, whether it's a sickness or a natural disaster, like we were stuck in for a week with the snowstorms, or when we were stuck here with the flooding, or, there's been so much that we've gone through. I can't remember all the details in the last 5 years, but all of those situations where we've been through, always let us know where our weak links are, places in our chain that we need to work on. And this was definitely one of them because we have not discussed leaving. We've discussed staying a lot and how we would survive and how we protect our land and what we would do. And we've prepped for that and we've planned for it. We haven't discussed leaving like we used to discuss when we were in South Carolina. Because every hurricane season, we knew we had to leave. We knew there would be a time they come knocking on our door.
Oh yeah, we were too close to the beach.
We were real close to the beach, and we had the National Guard come and knock on our door and tell us to put our Social Security number with a Sharpie in our arm before, because we were going to stay. And they said, and I'm like, well, what's that for? He said, tie your body. And we're turning off the power and we're turning off the water. Bye-bye. Good luck. We'll see you when the roads open back up. And that was a stark, that was, I think, that was my first experience with something like that. I think it was yours too. Were you with me then? Or is that before we got together?
I think that was before.
And that was like, huh? I was like, welcome to South Carolina. You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. And that we were always from there on, every hurricane season, ready to leave if we needed to. And we had our hurricane boxes. And so I think a lot of the information and things that we used to prep for would transfer to a situation like this. But now we've got a farm. And we haven't discussed what we would do with our livestock. Now, back in Polly's, I remember being a guest speaker on a podcast, Scott's, and he talked about it. And a lot of people that had larger livestock, they would write their phone number on the side of their horse, their goats, their cows, whatever, in paint or that shoe paint that used to have, with a little sponge on it. Y'all can remember back that far. they would do that and write on the side of their livestock their phone number or address. So if they got out during the hurricane or the storm and people found them, they know where they'd go back to. And that was a really good tip for that kind of thing. As far as ours, catching our hogs and all the livestock that we've got and writing our phone number on it or address on it. No, I don't know if that'd be possible. I think they'd have better luck in the mountains, running. And then we're like, whoever catches them can raise them or eat them. I don't know what we would do. Food for thought.
That would be tough. And we had that reality check, and it stuff starts running through your mind, because I was laying there in the bed going, what our dogs, our livestock.
Oh yeah, our dogs. I forget about our dogs. We wouldn't leave them.
And being able to pack all of this up and leave.
5 huge livestock guardian dogs.
Yeah, it weighs on your mind.
Where would you go? What would you do? Just drive around until the fire is over? I mean, camp somewhere. And then you have to have the money. You got to have the money to stay somewhere.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, my text messaging tell me. Oh, did I not do your coffee right? So these are the types of things that we need to work on as homesteaders, as, just people, because you might scoff at preppers or what have you, but it's something that we should all be doing. Excuse me, especially when you're faced with situations like we were just faced with the fires and the possibility of having to leave, and thankfully, this is kind of what I said back when we lived in Pawleys Island. Thankfully, we always own our land. We don't have the savings or the means to financially rebuild, but we always have the land. And I firmly believe, I don't panic. Like, I don't go, oh my gosh, what would we do? I always know God provides. I have that kind of faith. I'm not saying I don't have moments where it wouldn't break me mentally, but I always come back to my faith, because I know He has, my God, who hopefully is your God, has never let me down, ever. And even though we struggle and even though we have hardships, He's never let me down. And I am here to tell the story, So I know that, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't prep for it, plan for it. So I am looking forward to this coming meeting that we're going to have about bugging in, and we'll share all the details with you about new things that we learned. Because even if we go there with knowledge, we always come back with more than we went there with, which is amazing. But as far as the bugging out and having to leave your homestead, you have those people that put their, now there's a lot of times during hurricanes that we're like, we're not leaving. Where would we go? We couldn't afford to leave because we've left before and they wouldn't let us back in, and we couldn't afford a hotel, and we had to get home. And people, we've heard of all the situations where looters were coming, and we wanted to check on our home. So because of those things, a lot of people don't like to leave.
Yeah.
And then they get judged by the world. It's like they're stupid. They deserve to die if they're not going to leave. And I can't stand those haters, because until you walk in those shoes, you just don't know. But when it comes to fires, I can't say that it's different as far as how you feel about wanting to leave, but you have where you can't breathe. Like during a hurricane, you're like, oh, I can survive the waters, or I can survive the wind. You still need air to breathe.
Yeah.
So when the fire gets real thick, and the smoke, unless you have those really good oxygen masks, and all of that, I don't see how you would be able to stay without leaving. I've never been faced with that situation before. And this was as close as I've come to having to evacuate for a fire in my life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't scared as much as I was a little panicked that I wasn't prepared. And that's where the prepping for peace comes in.
Yeah.
If you can prep appropriately, it takes out the panic and the fear during those situations. And that's where I'm coming from. Hey, you are always welcome to come here with the Animals and Family Emergency. We're no a bit away, but we have room. Absolutely, sister. Absolutely. Oh, I would reach out in a heartbeat to I would I would blast all of our groups going, hey, who has room? Our downside with that is somebody would have to come here with a trailer real quick because we have no way to transport all of our livestock. And there's another weak link in our chain.
Well, we have a really big suburban.
Well, yeah, but you gonna put all the hogs in there?
No, we would have to let the hogs go. The thing about the hogs is they you don't move them quick. And
You move them over a period of a couple of days.
yeah, it's very they are
Good
so
morning, Daddy.
they
Good
are so
morning, Joyce.
used to being in there behind the wire that you take that wire down, they will not cross it. It takes
Well,
a
unless there's a
long
bunch of nuts
it takes a
somewhere.
long time unless you can get that trailer inside, and the terrain here is so rough that we can't even do that anymore, I don't think.
But so there's, I mean, these are the thoughts that, I mean, that we like to talk about. And hopefully our conversation, the things that we're going through, stimulate thought in your life so you can, plan for peace, prep for peace. So during those situations, you don't have that panic and you don't have that fear because the Lord tells us 365 times, do not fear, do not fear. I am with you. And he gives us these intuitions and the knowledge, or at least the desire to seek out the knowledge of how to prepare and plan. So during those times, we don't have the panic and fear, and we can get through the situation just fine. So, but yeah, other than having your bug out bags, which we can discuss, and we might even discuss that next week when we talk about the meeting about bugging in. I think that's a good time that we revisit this and maybe talk about everything that you should have or we have in a bug out bag or a bug in that, box case scenario. Um, but leaving our homestead is definitely a bigger uh thing for us than staying in. Staying in, I feel very comfortable with. Leaving, not so much. Well,
Well,
no one wants to leave their home.
no, I mean there's a lot that goes into it, and having
Well,
a
having a
bug
food
out
source.
having a bug out bag, and in my mind I would want to have my valuables and things that it can't be replaced in a place where if I needed to leave, I would have them ready. And in a situation where we had to stay, I would always know where those things were.
But not
And
only that, you
this,
got to go a step further. It's like you think about bugging in. We have the ability to collect water, filter water, create heat, cook, bathe, protect ourselves, grow food, sustain our way of life pretty comfortably. We can produce our own electricity. We have all those things. You take away all of that stuff that we have here and put us in a foreign environment. We don't have those things. We don't know the area about foraging. We don't know where we can get water. We don't know what we would do for food. We don't know what we would do for money. We have our livestock. It's a whole different
yeah,
conversation that
yeah, your comfort zone is definitely
I'm
gone.
not familiar with. Yeah, and this is uncharted territory for us, talking about having to leave and bugging out. And I mean, we've got survival skills, and that is important, especially if you're not talking about going to, like, she just invited us to their farm, that they've got plenty of room. In a case, and they got a huge house. And we would help you while we were there, girlfriend. That is wonderful. But if you don't have that invitation or that option, what would you do?
Yeah,
And there, I guess this isn't one of those coffee chats where we have answers. This is a coffee chat where we have questions and we need answers. So maybe y'all can help us seek those or offer, advice on what you would do in the situation or what you have done. I mean, there's a lot of people in our groups that had to have left because of
yeah,
a fire and lost their home. um, Shane and his family of 15 thankfully had his parents that were gracious, that gave them all a place to live where they rebuilt. And his children are amazing craftsmen, and his community is amazingly tight that they all stick together. And again, that was isolated to just their home. It wasn't a town event where, thousands of people were displaced and lost their homes. So that again is a different situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to chat. We need to talk more about this. Because I remember laying in bed and my friends sending me pictures. Those that lived in the neighboring county knew where we lived. And like, are you guys okay? Even Carmela out in Morristown, she goes,
Yeah.
hey, I just saw on the news, this is right by your house. Are you guys okay? And I felt that panic set in my heart. When that panic and fear set in my heart, in my mind, I should say, I wasn't thinking about God. I wasn't having peace. I was panicked. I even got mad at him.
Well,
like he's responsible for the fires.
and then you
Do you
start
remember
watching.
why I got mad at him?
Well, then you start watching the weather. It's like, well, we're supposed to get rain
And didn't
the
come.
day after.
But it didn't come.
The winds are supposed to pick up. It's supposed to blow 70 miles an hour, and you know what winds and fire do, and just praying for the rain to come.
Oh,
And
thank you, honey. Big Little Farm was good to see if needed to leave with fire. It's on Amazon. I'll have to look that up when I'm in town. We can't buffer videos here, oddly enough. But I'll definitely have to look that up when we're in town so we can watch that. I appreciate that. And I will look it up. Hopefully they have a transcript of the video so I can read about it at least, if nothing else. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But what was that? Yeah, what did I get mad at you for that night? Do you remember when I was panicking and in fear? I was even mad. He was so calm. He was like watching a guitar thing on his phone, and I was like, "We need to discuss this. You're not taking it seriously enough. We need to talk about what we're gonna do, where we're gonna live, where we're gonna be. Our livestock." It was bad. I said, "Look out the window. We've got fire coming."
well, we had the smoke for a couple of days,
It was hard to breathe.
and then you get the message where, yeah, they got it under control, fire's out,
Then it breaks out again.
and then it's like, well, fire took off again.
But I was mad at you for not taking it seriously.
I'm just thanking God that
And that's the thing, is that's, you kind of get that little warning of self-awareness. You praising God, thank you, Lord, that the rains did come, the fires did go out. Thank
It
you for the
did.
firefighters, the volunteers, the people that messaged us, the networks and all that. But then afterwards you're like, ooh, I was not prepared for that one. We need to change our plan. And because there's so much we are prepared for and so much we're not. And that was definitely a moment that we were not prepared for. And because of where we live, and you just never know, it's good to plan. So we didn't have that panic. Had we had a plan in place and everything, our boxes, like our hurricane boxes back in the day, our go bags in our go boxes, and our livestock all had a plan in place, panic wouldn't have hit me. Would I be sad? Would we be devastated if we lost this place? Absolutely. But I don't think, had we had those other measures in place, that it would have put me in that state where I was mad at him for not, taking it seriously, or I had that fear hit me because I kept watching it, like watching a hurricane come in. How close is it again? What are the winds going to do? Where's the fire at now? It robs your peace. What?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely uncomfortable, especially when you live in the middle of the woods, and
And it's dry as all get
you,
out.
you, you
And
don't
you ain't
know
got no
you don't know what
water.
the guy on the other side of the ridge is burning, and if he what's going on. Things get out of hand, the wind picks up, and
It's crazy around here with those fires.
I have a weather radio, and I listen to it a lot, and when they talk about uh, the the humidity being so low,
And in a drought and everything else. And us
please
not having
don't
water
burn.
here.
And
Yeah. The tourists don't listen to that though.
yeah,
Well, the locals don't listen to it either. Because they're used to burning the trash and they ain't gonna let nobody tell them what to do on their land, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Good morning, sister. How are you? Yeah, how are you, Linda? Linda, we were talking about leaving, if you had to leave and like bugging in or bugging out and during the emergency situation because we were faced with possibly being evacuated from fires a couple of weeks ago. So that's kind of what we've been talking about all this morning and how not being prepared robs your peace. And that's prepping. We're not talking about prepping because out of fear. We're prepping for peace. So we have peace in the midst of chaos. And that's where we're going to keep moving forward, especially through the year 2024, which is really important. Um, and then next week, let's talk about, well, we want to discuss the meeting and share that with y'all, but we definitely want to talk about ingredients that we're going to have in, your bug out bags and for bugging in. So those are the things that we feel that are important to us right now to discuss. So we're actually going to plan a conversation for one. And y'all bring some information to the table too, please. Just talk about maybe what you read about, what you know about, what you heard. Like she shared that video on Amazon. Let's watch that together. See what they would do with their livestock when having to leave with a fire. We shared about putting the numbers on the livestock, and the fact that we don't have a trailer to move them and what we would do with that situation if you let them go, fight or flight or stay home and be roasted, which is a good idea. You will always have a place. That is that area. Can you imagine us coming down to Florida to see y'all with all them hogs and chickens and rabbits and everything? That's hilarious. But thank you. And no, we would definitely appreciate it. We would reach out to everybody and anybody. Of course, we got to get there, but that's definitely, needs to be on our plan of attack so we don't have that fear come over. I say us, I mean me. I don't know what he was thinking during that situation.
Yeah, I'll put God in my bug out bag.
Don't put baby in a bag. He's cracking himself up. Now he's gonna choke to that. Anyways, we're gonna get going, y'all. You guys have a blessed day. Let's put some thought into this so we can share those thoughts moving forward. And hopefully we can all take a little bit of time. It's not going to take a lot of chunk out of your life to put together a bug out bag or a bug out box or a preparedness box, whatever you want to title it. It doesn't really matter to me, but it should have all of your important things to help you survive at least a couple weeks. Because I know from our personal life, when we had to leave for a hurricane, you're displaced no less than 1 week. And that's just them closing down the roads and being able to get them back open. So that's minimum. That's the minimum you should have your box prepared for is at least 1 week. And we'll elaborate from there. Like, your seed stash as far as your heirloom seeds or important seeds and those types of things, definitely evacuating to Georgia. Oh yeah. Yeah, Linda, that was great. That was our honeymoon when we went to Georgia. Toccoa, was it Toccoa, Georgia?
Yeah, Westminster. Yeah.
And all those weeds we drove through that camper with that hornet's nest, and oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
Yeah,
Good times,
Linda, I remember
girl.
pulling up in the parking lot and looking at the sign, and I'm like, I've never heard of a any day in.
Those are fun times. We'll have to share that story sometime. But oh my
That was
gosh,
fun.
yeah, that was fun. That was 1999. That was our honeymoon. We just got married like 4 days before we had to evacuate, and it was a trip. But anyhow, all right, y'all have a
Yeah.
blessed day and stay warm and toasty, stay dry, and thanks for joining us for coffee. We'll talk next Saturday, bugging in and bugging out, and let's get that list together.
Work on it.
Bye, y'all.